There are stories that shake you, and then there are stories that change you. Today, I want to share one of those stories. You see, in this world, we're all walking through something. Grief, heartbreak, betrayal, survival. And sometimes, what a person needs most is not money, not fame, but simple kindness. A hand, a voice, a second chance. This story, based on true events, is about a young boy who lost everything, and yet, somehow, found the strength to rise. Before we begin, I want to ask you to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life inspired stories that will move your heart and make you see the world differently. So, sit back, open your mind, and open your heart. This is the story of Vaati, who rose from ashes of despair. The rain fell like broken glass the night Vaati's world came undone. He was only 14. His parents, his only family, his heartbeat, his whole world left home that evening to attend a wedding out of town. Vaati watched them wave goodbye from the back window, his mother's scarf dancing in the wind like a soft goodbye. They were smiling. He never saw them alive again. It happened on the highway. A trailer lost its brakes on a sharp bend. Their car was no match. The wreckage was on the news, cold, twisted, bloodied. Someone turned up the volume, and Vaati heard his father's name, then his mother's, then silence. He refused to believe it. He waited for them to walk through the door like it was all just a sick joke. But when their bodies arrived in cold wooden boxes, something inside him cracked. The burial day came like a thunderstorm that had no end. A crowd gathered at the village hill. The air was thick with grief and the heavy smell of wet soil. Vaati stood over the two freshly dug graves, his small hand clutching a handful of dirt. His lips trembled. "This can't be real," he whispered. But when he let the soil fall into the grave, something changed. The dull thud on the coffin's lid tore reality wide open. His knees buckled. His cry was the kind of cry that splits the earth, raw, deep, endless. They were gone. Gone forever. He screamed their names, begged the ground to spit them back out, but the grave swallowed his voice, and the world moved on. It was at that burial, just as the final prayers faded into the wind, that his uncle stood up. A tall, quiet man with sad eyes and a trembling voice. "We have no children of our own," he said, placing a hand gently on Vaati's shoulder. "But from today, this boy is our son." The villagers nodded in approval. Whispers of support floated through the crowd. Some were surprised, others relieved. Vaati just stared at the soil. A few days after the funeral, they returned to the city. Nairobi was noisy, dusty, full of cars and shadows. His uncle kept his word. He enrolled Vaati at a nearby day secondary school. Nothing fancy, but enough to keep the boy's dreams alive. That's when the darkness truly began. His aunt. She had poison in her heart and fire in her tongue. From the moment Vaati stepped into their apartment, she made it clear. He was not welcome. She argued with her husband every night. Her voice pierced walls like broken glass. "Why bring him here?" she shouted. "He's not our blood. Let the government raise him." She drank always. Bottles hidden behind curtains and under the sink. She was rarely sober. Her breath stank of cheap liquor and bitterness. At first, she was just cold. Then she became cruel. Vaati became the houseboy, up before dawn, washing floors, cleaning dishes, doing laundry. If the tea was too cold, he was slapped. If the food wasn't ready, he was kicked. If he dared speak back, punched, whipped, locked out in the rain. "You are are nothing," she would spit. "Your parents are dead, dead. No one's coming to save you." She laughed when he cried. And then came the men. When his uncle traveled for work, and he traveled often, strange men came into the house. Loud, drunk, laughing men. She drank with them, played loud music, ignored the boy. Sometimes they taunted him, mocking his worn school uniform, pushing him around. Once, one of them slapped him across the face for looking at them wrong. The aunt didn't flinch. "Be glad I feed you," she hissed. "You should have died with them." At school, Vaati wore long sleeves to hide the bruises. He never spoke. Teachers noticed, but said nothing. Some tried. She threatened them. "Mind your business," she'd say. His uncle suspected something. One day, he returned home early and found Vaati with a swollen eye. "What happened?" he asked, panicked. "He fell." The aunt smiled sweetly. "Boys will be boys." She kissed her husband in front of the boy, held his hand, played the part of the loving, grieving mother. The uncle, too tired, too absent, chose to believe her, but it was all an act. She had a plan. Vaati's parents left him an inheritance, a modest estate with land, a savings account, and a life insurance payout. It was under trust until he turned 18. The aunt wanted it, all of it. She wanted the boy out of the way, permanently. Vaati was 17. It was his final year of high school. The national exams were weeks away. His teachers said he was a top performer, one of the best, a visionary young boy, a miracle child. But they didn't know what he went home to each night. That evening was unusually quiet. Nairobi's usual hum faded into the distance, and the wind outside carried a strange stillness. Vaati sat in his upstairs room, hunched over his books. A tiny lamp lit the desk. He was revising biology, blood vessels and the human heart. Ironic, considering his was pounding louder than ever. His ears picked up a sound. Tires on gravel. He moved to the window and gently pulled the curtain back. His heart dropped. The aunt's car. But it wasn't just her. She wasn't alone. Two bulky men stepped out of the back seat, broad-shouldered, loud. One wore a black hoodie, the other carried a wooden club. His aunt stumbled out, drunk, her high heels clicking clumsily on the stone driveway. She laughed, loud and wild, like a hyena. Vaati's body froze. The gate creaked shut behind them, and through the thin night air, he heard her speak. "Tonight, we end it," she slurred. "That little cockroach goes to join his dear mummy and daddy in hell." The men laughed. "We kill him," one growled. "No trace, no body. Throw him in the river. No evidence, no case." Vaati's legs turned jelly. His stomach twisted. His mind screamed, "Run!" They were climbing the stairs, heavy steps, fast, angry. They were coming. The front door shook with the first knock. Boom. Silence. Then again. Louder. Boom. Boom. "Open, boy!" the aunt shouted. "Your day has come!" Vaati stood, shaking. Sweat poured down his back. He looked around the room, breath quick and shallow. The books on the desk, the school bag, the neatly arranged pencils, all meaningless now. All he wanted was to survive. The pounding grew louder. They were kicking the door now, screaming, "Open here, stupid boy, or we'll break it down!" He didn't wait. He couldn't. There was no time to think. Just act. He darted toward the back of his room, where a glass door opened to a narrow balcony. It was 3 floors up. One wrong move, and he'd break his neck. But he had no choice. He slid the door open silently. The wind was cold. The edge was narrow. He stepped out. Behind him, the pounding continued. The door was cracking. 1 step. 2. He gripped the rusted railing and pulled himself over, landing carefully on the metal water pipe that ran along the wall. It groaned under his weight. He didn't look down. He inched sideways, gripping the pipe, pressing his back to the wall. Below, the garden shadows swayed. One slip would end everything. He heard glass shatter upstairs. They were inside. He didn't look back. His fingers found the narrow cement groove that led downward to the kitchen awning. He slid carefully, boots scraping against the wall. At the edge of the roof, he crouched and jumped. Landing with a soft thud on the wet grass below, he rolled, got up, and ran. He didn't stop to breathe, didn't stop to cry, didn't stop to think. He vaulted over the hedge and into the street, heart drumming in his chest like a war drum. Behind him, angry shouts echoed. A window slammed, but he didn't stop. He ran into the night, into darkness, into safety, into survival. That night, the boy they once called slave became a fugitive in his own city. 10 years passed. The city had changed. The skyline was taller, the streets busier. But some nights still carried an old kind of silence, a silence that wrapped around people like fog. That night was one of them. At 10:47 p.m., an ambulance screeched through the gates of the Mistreatment City Hospital, lights flashing, horn blaring. Nurses at the emergency unit rushed outside, ready. 2 paramedics flung the back doors open. "He's not breathing." "No pulse. Brief, shallow, possible cardiac arrest." A frail old man lay on the stretcher, his shirt soaked in sweat, face pale and lips bluish. A nurse quickly placed an oxygen mask over his mouth, while another pushed the stretcher toward the sliding glass doors. He was unconscious, not talking, not moving. The name tag around his wrist read, "Unknown male, estimated age, 70 plus." Inside the emergency unit, doctors and nurses sprang into action. The man was lifted onto a bed. Machines beeped. Blood pressure monitors were connected. Needles slid into his veins. Electrodes were stuck on his chest. "Get me his vitals," said Dr. Evans, the night physician. "He's crashing." They worked quickly, a team of 4. They stabilized him just enough to keep his heart beating. One nurse kept calling his name, hoping for any sign of awareness. Nothing. Stillness. Outside, 2 women paced the hallway, eyes red, hands clenched. His daughters, at least that's what they said, tired, frightened, desperate. A nurse led them into a small private office near the emergency wing, a quiet, sterile room meant for delicate conversations. Above the door, a frosted glass sign read, "Family Briefing Lounge." Inside, Dr. Evans faced them with a serious look. "Are you the family of the patient just brought in?" he asked. They nodded. "What's his name?" The older sister answered with a whisper, "Mwaki. Mr. Mwaki." "All right," Dr. Evans said, taking notes. "Your father is suffering from a major heart attack complicated by extremely high blood pressure. We've managed to stabilize him, for now. But he needs immediate ICU admission and a high-risk heart procedure." The sisters looked at each other, visibly shaken. He continued, "Do you have any medical insurance?" They didn't respond right away. Then the younger one spoke, voice cracking, "No. We don't. He's just an old village man. He's never even had a health card. We don't have anything." Dr. Evans sighed deeply. "I'm sorry, but for ICU and cardiac surgery, the hospital requires a deposit of 250,000 shillings. Silence. The sisters didn't move, didn't blink. Just quiet. And then the tears came. The older sister covered her face and wept. The younger one stared blankly, her voice shaking. "We have nothing. Nothing at all." People passing through the hallway paused. The crying echoed down the corridor, soft and broken like distant thunder. Dr. Evans watched them, guilt creeping into his chest. He cleared his throat and quietly excused himself. He walked down the hall to the executive wing and entered the hospital director's office. Inside, the managing director was reviewing paperwork beneath soft desk lights. Calm, sharp-eyed, serious. "Sir," Dr. Evans said, "we've got an emergency case. Poor family, no coverage. The old man needs immediate surgery." He didn't speak. He turned slowly toward a large CCTV monitor fixed into the corner of his desk. It displayed feeds from different parts of the hospital. "Which ones are they?" he asked. Dr. Evans pointed at the screen. "That's them, in the family lounge." The moment he saw the two women on the screen, his face changed. His lips parted slightly. His eyes widened, not in shock, but in recognition, and something else. Pity. Maybe even pain. He stared at them for a moment. Silent. Then he leaned back, pressed his fingers together, and said quietly, "I will cover everything." "Sir, bring the authorization form," he said. "Now." Dr. Evans blinked, surprised, then hurried out. 10 minutes later, he returned to the family lounge, this time with a kind smile and another man by his side, a heart surgeon dressed in green scrubs, mask pulled down, eyes calm and focused. "Ladies," Dr. Evans said gently, "I have good news. Someone has decided to pay all the medical fees. Everything is covered." The sisters looked up slowly, confused. "Who?" the younger one asked. Dr. Evans just shook his head softly. "It doesn't matter right now. What matters is, your father is going into surgery tonight." The surgeon nodded. "He's already in the ICU. We're starting the operation now. Don't worry. We'll do everything we can." Tears flowed again, but this time from relief. The two sisters stood up to thank him, but he held up his hand. "No need. Just go home. Rest. You can come back in the morning." They left the hospital with lighter steps, not knowing that someone, somewhere in that building, had recognized them and chosen to act. Morning came. The sun had barely risen above the rooftops of Nairobi, but the air inside Meditreat City Hospital's waiting lounge was heavy with silence. The two sisters sat close together on the gray plastic chairs, hands folded tightly on their laps. No one spoke. Their eyes were tired, their hearts unsure. The hallway clock ticked softly. They waited. Was he alive? Was he gone? Time dragged like a wounded soldier. A few minutes later, the door to the ICU wing opened. A clinical doctor stepped in, his face calm but unreadable. He approached them with a soft nod. "Good morning," he said gently. "Please be patient. The lead surgeon will speak to you shortly." They nodded without a word. He left. More waiting. More silence. They didn't know what to expect. All they could do was sit there, trapped in the weight of possibility, life or death, hope or sorrow. And then the door burst open again. A tall figure strode in. Green scrubs, blue gloves, white shoes, face covered in a surgical mask, a hair cap tight on his head. His steps were strong, confident. The man of the hour. The surgeon. He stopped in front of them, still catching his breath from the operating room. "Everything is under control," he said, in a calm, assured tone. "He's stable. The heart is beating fine. The surgery was successful." The sisters breathed out in unison. He paused for a moment, then tilted his head. Before I leave, may I ask, who is the patient to you? The older sister stood up slowly. He's our father, she said. Mr. Mwaki. The man didn't speak immediately. Instead, he raised his gloved hands and pulled off the surgical mask. And then they saw him. His eyes, his jawline, his voice. It was him. The older sister's eyes widened in disbelief. She gasped and took a step forward, almost unsure if what she saw was real. "Vaati!" she shouted, her voice shaking. He smiled gently. "Here I am, Aunt." She screamed his name again, this time louder, fuller, as she rushed toward him and wrapped her arms around his chest. He held her, steady and strong, the little boy now a man in full bloom. You're a doctor? A surgeon?" she whispered in awe, pulling away to look at him. "I can't believe it." "God is good all the time," Vaati said, his voice steady but soft. They stood there for a long second, just looking at each other. The past curled around them like smoke, painful, thick, impossible to ignore. He broke the silence first. "Where's Uncle?" he asked, eyes searching. The aunt's face dropped. She looked down. Tears began to fall. "We separated," she said quietly. "A few years ago. I was a mess, Vaati. I was angry, aggressive, drinking every day. I couldn't bear children. And he couldn't take it anymore. He left. I ruined everything." Her knees buckled slightly as the guilt flooded back. "I wronged you. I tormented you, treated you like you were nothing. I don't deserve to even look you in the eye. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Vaati." He stepped closer, held her hands. "Aunt," he said gently, "you are still my family. You and Uncle. You are the only parents I've ever known, and I love you both." She broke. Tears poured down her cheeks. Her body shook with sobs. Vaati continued, "I will make sure you get the help you need. Therapy, treatment, even fertility options, if that's your wish. And if you want to reconnect with Uncle, I'll help you find him." She looked at him, speechless. "I want to bring our family back," he said, "because no matter what happened back then, we still belong to each other." She nodded through her tears, overwhelmed by the grace she never thought she'd receive. The waiting room, once so silent, was now filled with the quiet sounds of healing, the kind that doesn't come from medicine or surgery, but from love.